Hi, I'm Chelsea Hucker, and I'm the Executive Director at Foothills Alliance. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Stevie Nix, our legal advocate. As a legal advocate, Stevie helps our survivors understand the justice system, their rights, and the services that are available to them. Now, she's not a lawyer, and she can't give legal advice, but her military background and her passion for helping our survivors make her an outstanding advocate for our survivors' rights. I hope you enjoy the first interview in our series to help you get to know our staff and our organization a little better. Thank you so much for watching.
It's good to have you. Hi, Stevie. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good.
So we're going to ask you a few questions. We really want to learn a little bit more about your role at Foothills Alliance as a legal advocate. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So how do you help survivors navigate the legal system?
So a lot of what I do with survivors concerning the legal system is helping with restraining orders and orders of protection. That's kind of the big thing that I do with survivors. While I'm not your lawyer and I cannot tell you what to put in the form, I've watched it be filled out enough and go to court and understand what the judges are looking for in court that I can assist you with what you might want to put in, what might not be necessary to put in, but it will all be in your own words. So that's kind of the big thing that I do is those two, and there is a difference between orders of protection and restraining orders. So I also help explain those differences and kind of guide our survivors whether or not they need an order of protection or a restraining order. Another big thing that I do is help survivors understand, work with law enforcement and what the law enforcement officer may be trying to say that he may not be able to interpret as well into civilian terminology. So I kind of bridge the gap between law enforcement and our survivors and understanding and communicating what the survivor needs and what law enforcement needs for the case to go forward. And I'll also go along when the survivor makes their statement if they would like me to. That is all their choice. But I'll go along if they want me to go when they make their statement or things of that nature, follow-up questions and whatnot with law enforcement.
So you really help facilitate that bridge between law enforcement and the survivor so that, if the survivor's anxious or, it's just somebody there to make sure that that conversation goes the way they want it to and they're able to report what they need to report.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and that kind of goes on to the next question. So as an advocate, can you provide legal advice or guidance?
I cannot. I am not a lawyer. I am an advocate. So I'm not barred. I haven't gone to law school, so I cannot give any legal advice. That would be very bad for me and for our survivors' cases if I tried to do that. But I do know a lot about how the process works, so I can give you from my perspective what I've seen and what I've experienced and what I've witnessed, but that is not legal advice and I am in no way able to represent anyone. So as much as I would love to fight even more for our survivors, I have a limit legally that I am obligated to abide by.
Okay, well that's clear, but we know that you are a very vocal advocate for your survivors.
I try to be. I can be pesky.
So that comes to one last question. So what are some victims' rights that people need to be aware of?
So a really big right that people aren't necessarily always aware of is the Victims' Right Act. And that has a whole list of all the survivors' rights that they are entitled to per the federal government. So a lot of people don't even know that that exists, and it's really important for survivors to understand that it does and to understand what that act says they are entitled to, because often if they're not aware, it won't necessarily be enforced. So you want to really be aware of what you are legally allowed, what legal rights you're entitled to, and make sure that those are being enforced, because that can have some detriment on your trial if you're not being afforded those rights. So, and at the end here, we'll post a little link to it so you all can look through and just educate yourself on what those rights are. And I'm also going to post a link for another website that has some really good legal resources for those of you who may be going through the trial process or about to go through the trial process.
Great. Thank you, Stevie.
You're
Foothills
welcome.
Alliance is so lucky to have you as a legal advocate. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
You're welcome. I'm very happy to be a part of Foothills. Thank you.